Mother Ann Lee was born in Manchester, England on February 29, 1736. She was the unlettered daughter of a blacksmith and went to work in a textile mill in her youth, but was also employed in at least one job related to cooking. She was known to be a very serious and neat worker. When she was 22, she met the Wardleys, part of the French Prophet, a group of Shakers. She then joined the Shaking Quakers, also known as the Shakers. She married in 1762, but was unhappy, likely influencing her doctrinal insistence on celibacy. She was a religious leader of the Shaker community, and the only one to bring the Shaker sect from England to the American colonies. In 1770, she gave birth to her child, who died soon after. Because of that, she thought that God was punishing her. Therefore, she decided to begin leading Shaker activities, and thus, later in 1770, she was arrested due to religious persecution. She didn't fear going to prison, and she had no fear of death, because she knew that her work was not yet done. While imprisoned, she came to believe via a vision that sexual lust impeded Christ's work and that only through celibacy could men and women further his kingdom on earth.
Due to another vision 4 years later by James Whittaker, one of her followers, Lee, her husband, her brother, and 6 others immigrated to America. They then founded a settlement near Niskayuna, which is 7 miles northwest of Albany, New York. Nowadays, that settlement is called Watervliet. The Shaker movement grew throughout New England, and Mother Ann Lee was at the head of it all. The Shakers believed that as Christ had embodied the masculine half of God's dual nature, so she embodied the female half. Lee was imprisoned for treason in 1780 due to refusing to sign an oath of allegiance to the United States, but was released and toured New England from 1781 to 1783. The only reason she was imprisoned in the first place was due to her starting to go on missionary tours, as well as thinking that she was a female incarnation of Christ. She died on September 8, 1784, in Watervliet. The Shakers based their beliefs in the Old Testament, which praise dance as a way to show worship to God. The Shakers, in America at least, came to believe that God was bisexual because both men and women were made in his image. This was also duplicated throughout nature. Sexuality was seen as a sin, and celibacy was thought to be the only solution. The numbers in America peaked before the Civil War, then lessened afterwards, and have shrunk since.
You can never enter the kingdom of God with hardness against anyone, for God is love, and if you love God, you will love one another. You ought to dress yourself in modest apparel, such as becomes the people of God, and teach your family to do likewise. You ought to be industrious and prudent, and not live a sumptuous and gluttonous life, but labor for a meek and quiet spirit, and see that your family is kept decent and regular in all their goings forth, that others may see your example of faith and good works, and acknowledge the work of God in your family. Put your hands to work and your hearts to God.